Get up, everybody. It's game day until it's no longer quite game day. Welcome into this edition of Warchant TV. I'm Aslan Hajavani, joined by Warchant.com managing editor Ira Schofel. Thanks for being here, Ira. Promo code is below. If you were a member of Warchant.com, you know all the stuff we're about to talk about probably a few hours ago. Nike 75 is a promo code, $75 for an annual membership and a $75 e-card to Nike. Hit the thumbs up button too. Like this video on YouTube. We would appreciate it. All right, Ira, I woke up like I set the alarm for about 9 a.m. Set it, woke up, and I'm like, hey, I don't have to wake up. I don't have a game to cover. Florida State-Clemson game has been postponed. Not canceled, I should take that back. It's been postponed. How did we get to this point to where this game, obviously it's a health matter, but how do we get to the point where this game has been postponed 3 hours before kickoff? We've seen this happen across the country, but nothing this close, it feels like, to kickoff.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been about a 12 to 14 hours of discussions going on between the two schools and the ACC, with Clemson revealing some information about their testing, Florida State having some issues with that, medical advisors kind of going back and forth. I don't think it was not resolved last night. As far as what we were told this morning, Florida State's team was at their normal breakfast for game day. They had already started having some meetings. They're preparing to get to leave the team hotel and go over to the stadium when they got the news that the medical advisors couldn't decided that they couldn't agree that it was safe for the players. And so there's more to it. We can get into some of the background, but basically that's the extent of it. The ACC apparently does not actually come in and render a final decision. They want the schools to come to an agreement, and Florida State and the Clemson could not come to an agreement. And they've called off the game for now. There is still a window that this game could be played in December, and we can talk about some of the factors that go into that as well.
All right, so how does this happen then? How do you get tested 3 days in a week? You have a Monday test, you have a Wednesday test, you have a Friday test, but then it all kind of falls apart. I guess, again, hours before kickoff. You mentioned it was happening some on Friday night. I mean, I guess what was the point of contention between the two schools?
Well, so they did have They had a player from a reserve offensive lineman, a backup offensive lineman, not one of the starters, was apparently symptomatic during the week, had cold symptoms, but he tested negative. They have two tests during the week at Clemson, tested negative both times. So Clemson, I guess, just decided, okay, well, he may just have a cold. So they let him be part of the travel party. He comes with the team, and during the week, if you're a second team offensive lineman, you're not only with the offensive line group, but you're going up probably a lot against the first team and second team defensive line. So he travels with the team to Tallahassee. Then they do the third test, which is the one that the ACC does by a third party, and that test comes back positive. Well, at that point, Florida State's got serious concerns, because if he's been practicing all week and they're told that the player was symptomatic all week, then you've got concerns, especially because Clemson also has other issues. Clemson just announced that throughout their athletic department, they had 18 positive tests this week. I think 13 with student athletes and 5 with staff members. So there's a concern at Florida State right now that Clemson may be on the verge of an outbreak. Their star quarterback just was out for 2 weeks for testing positive to COVID, Trevor Lawrence. So there's just some concerns there. And the bigger concern for Florida State is, if you've been having issues with your players, just like on campuses across the country, where players and families are concerned whether or not the school's doing everything in the players' best interest and really preserving their health. And you've had players opt out. They just had a player opt out last week, citing coronavirus as one of his concerns. And you've had a couple of players come back in because they feel like you're doing everything by the books. Well, then now you play this game, and if Florida State has 4 or 5 guys test positive next week, now they've got to answer to these players. Did you really do what you said you were going to do and protect us? So it's a lot of layers to the concerns, but those are the big things. Florida State didn't feel good about the way Clemson handled this situation, and they also didn't feel like they would be able to honestly tell the players they did everything to protect them if something happens by playing this game.
I was going to make a joke about like the ghost of DJ Matthews just like hovering around this, but I mean, there's Mike Norvell spoke to, I think, Dawn Davenport on ESPN and said one of his things was, we're trying to establish trust with our team, that we're trying to take care of them. DJ Matthews in the preseason makes this kind of cryptic tweet about not getting maybe the right information about the virus. So, I mean, that was a legitimate concern the staff had, was, I guess, transparency and I mean, some people might be rolling their eyes about that, but there's a trust factor involved with a new staff coming in. Obviously, a health concern that's taken the world by storm.
And especially that case. I mean, from what I understand of that case that was a situation where a player was testing negative but was showing symptoms, and there was concerns about why are you letting this player practice if he's showing symptoms. This is very early on. This is at the start of preseason camp or during workouts even. Why are you letting that player be around the team? Well, they kept testing negative. Then later they did get a positive test, but it turned out that was a false positive. They went back and did more tests, and it turned out it was a false positive. So that was just a kind of it's one of those things that's happened in this situation is all these tests are not foolproof. You have false negatives, you have false positives. We just saw it with Nick Saban, where he tested positive, then was able to test 3 more times negative, and was able to coach in that game. When those things happen, they cause the players and their families to be very concerned. Well, this is a situation where FSU would have clear warning that there could be a concern. Clemson's had 18 people in their athletic department test positive in the last week. You had a player practice all week that now tests positive. I think they felt like they would have a hard time justifying it to their players if they played this game. Having said that, though, Mike Norvell said in that interview, as you mentioned, that he wanted to play the game. The team was preparing to play the game. And the fact that it was such a lopsided point spread and Florida State was expecting to get beat pretty badly, people are going to make assumptions and make jokes. But the reality is I do think this came down to those safety issues. And Florida State does want to play the game. They just didn't want to play it today.
Right. I mean, to that point, they want to play the game because there's, more than pride. There's dollars and pennies on the line for this game not being played. I mean, it's weird to see the fan base. There's a certain amount that are like, a disaster averted. Like, we'll play Clemson, but maybe when we're a little bit healthier, this sounds like a good idea to kick it down the can. And there's a certain part of the fan base where it says we look like cowards. We're no longer unconquered. But I mean, for the administration, they wanted the game to be played. The team wanted the game to be played. I mean, what's on the line for Florida State getting this game postponed so close to kickoff? I mean, there's ramifications. There's the TV schedules being changed around. I mean, there's got to be other things than simply just, hey, we'll try to do it again in a month.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's nobody at FSU that wanted to not play this game. I mean, I can tell you from talking to people on the staff that the football staff, they were preparing every minute of the last 24 hours just like they were going to play a game. They wanted to play this game. The players wanted to play this game. From what I was told, when they left the team hotel and went back to Doak to basically break up for the day, players were dejected. They really wanted to play this football game. And I mean, I think that's an athlete's mentality. Even if you're going up against somebody really good, number 4 team in the country, you want to go out there and you want to prove people wrong. So they wanted to play this game. But from the administration standpoint, yeah, they desperately wanted to play this game. I mean, a home game, even with these limited attendance that we have right now, less than 20,000 fans, it's a 7-figure loss for Florida State if they don't play this home game. TV and the ACC want this game to be played. It was going to be on ABC at noon. That's inventory that costs a lot of money for them, for the advertisers they're going to deliver. Now they can juggle it today, but they're still losing that game, that window. And so I think, when you look forward, where Florida State, and Mike Norvell said in his official statement, that wasn't by accident. He said, we want to play. We look forward to seeing if we can play this game in December. Clemson has an open date on December 12th. They're expected to play in the ACC championship game on December 19th. They would have had a bye week before that game, which I'm sure they would like to have. But the game, that date is open. I believe if they end up playing Notre Dame has a game on December 12th. So it's not like Clemson would be getting an unfair disadvantage to have to play on December 12th if they end up playing Notre Dame, because Notre Dame has to play December 12th against Wake Forest. So, and the ACC and the ABC are going to want that game to be played for the inventory. So, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. Not a lot of pressure. There's going to be a lot of desire to play that game on December 12th. Clemson's the only ones that really might not have an interest in doing it. But at the end of the day, it might be better for the ACC. It would definitely be better for the ACC to play that game for TV. So if everybody's healthy and can play, I think there's a decent chance we'll see that game played December 12th.
I mean, just in terms of, do you expect we'll maybe get a statement from Athletics Director David Coburn, or do you think Norvell's sort of message that's here on the screen is pretty much what we'll hear from Florida State?
Yeah, I think I think that's about it. I mean, Mike Norvell later spoke on game day, and you can read that on the Tribal Council as well, or in our story. where he said, we were ready to play this game. I think that is their statement. That we wanted to play this football game. It's not like we backed out. The issue for both administrations is I don't think, from Dan Radakovich's side and David Coburn's side, I don't think either one of them is like angry at the other. I think Dabo's probably mad. I think Dabo and his staff are probably mad because they wanted that bye week on December 12th. From a competitive standpoint,
travel down too, though, right? I mean, they got on a plane, they came down here. They're in Tallahassee, Clemson right now, or there might be on the way back up, but they came here,
right? But and the FSU people aren't going to say this because they don't want to get into a war of words. But hey, why did you bring that kid? Why did you have him practice all week if he was symptomatic? So there's not a lot of sympathy, I don't think, from the FSU camp. Even as they wanted to play the game, they just didn't feel like it was safe. So. I'm sure Clemson's mad, but I think from FSU's perspective is, look, man, pound sand. You created this situation. As far as I know, FSU didn't have anybody test positive this week. And the other thing Mike Norvell said in his statement that was interesting was that they've had players miss games for symptoms with negative tests. And I think if you think back to a couple weeks ago, we saw FSU not have Ron Dugans, James Blackman were not at a game, and it's because they had a sickness, but it wasn't COVID because they were right back out there the following week. So that's their point is, FSU feels like they've done everything they can to protect their players and the other team's players, and they feel like Clemson didn't do the same. So, I don't think you'll see much from the administrations because I don't think they're going to want to go down that road. But I think Mike Norvell's statement that we were ready to play is pretty clear.
And I guess I wonder, what was Clemson's reaction going to be when they revealed that this kid had ended up testing positive? Like, do they reveal that, hey, he was symptomatic the whole week? Like, how does Florida State know that this kid was symptomatic if he was testing negative all week and then all of a sudden things pop up on Friday? Is there like a lot of transparency between the two programs, or the conferences are making everybody be pretty open about these things?
Yeah, I think that's the very basic tenet of all of this is that everybody has to be an open book. That you've got these medical advisors on each school that don't work for the football coaches, they don't work for the staff, they're university people, and they're documenting all the information during the week, and then they're presenting it to the other school and the conference. I just think if you had schools being able to hide information or shelter information, now there's always been concerns about that could happen. Would a school in a huge game be as forthcoming as they need to be? There's always been kind of concerns at every school, but the premise is, yes, you're supposed to give all the information, symptomatic, non-symptomatic, asymptomatic. And I think Clemson, my impression is Clemson felt like this isn't me not speaking to Clemson, this is just my assumption based on putting things together, that Clemson thought they would just report, okay, we had a positive test, he's not going to play. Yes, he did have symptoms, but we take protocols to make sure with social distancing that we don't think he would have infected anybody else. Well, everybody is taking those protocols, yet you're seeing spread in teams. You've seen teams go from 1 case to 15 cases really quickly. So, I don't think I think Clemson thought Florida State would say, okay, we're fine with it. And Florida State was not fine with it.
I guess last thing then, Ira, I mean, as in the early morning when this first broke that the game was being postponed, Florida State was getting pretty hammered. I mean, not so much from like national media, but at least from fan bases, obviously Clemson, even some of the Florida State fans. I mean, do you think as more of this becomes, comes out to the air and becomes more apparent of why Florida State chose the route they did, will there be like, I guess maybe some mercy shown from a media perspective, or do you think Florida State's going to end up this is going to be kind of like a black eye on what's been obviously a very disappointing season?
I mean, there'll be running jokes from some people, I'm sure. And you never know how it plays out over time. It's I think if the fact that they do play December 12th, or if Florida State makes it clear that they want to play and Clemson refuses to play or does not play, then I think that helps from a perception standpoint. If they don't play at all, then yeah, I mean, you're probably going to have running jokes for a long time. But I do think the media has done a pretty good job, as you said. National media even has come in really quickly and kind of given both sides. And I think a lot of people understand where FSU's coming from.
Gotcha. Plenty more reaction from this coming up over on warchant.com. Again, time is money. You would have known all this 15 minutes before we did this video, watching it all, and 2 hours even before that, because Ira's been on top of it. Promo code is Nike75. Use that promo code, $75 e-card to Nike, and then a $75 annual membership to warchant.com, which is a 25% discount. So we'll do this some other time, Ira. We'll catch up and we'll talk football. Hopefully next week everything will be sort of back to normal, hopefully, right?
And we'll start prepping for the big Virginia game, Aslan.
That's right. I can't wait to come rush back up here after spending Thanksgiving with my family. I haven't seen them in 8 months. But anyhow, onwards and upwards. For Ira Schofel, I'm Aslan Hajavani. Thanks for watching this edition of Warchant TV.